Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a while since I've recorded any videos on here, but finally I'm back and I'm really grateful for all your support during this tough time and dealing with this virus and losing a loved one. But all I can say is sure that you're staying safe and healthy and taking care of your loved ones, and thank you again for your support. Alright, so moving on to the ABH Norvina palette volume 4. I want to talk a little bit more about this today and what my thoughts are on this palette and the swatches and whether I recommend it or not. But before all of that, I also want to talk about some other purchases that I've been making in the past couple months, and then we'll get back to this palette and others. So one of the other things that I picked up this past few months, one of them was the Makeup Revolution Forever Flawless eyeshadow palette that retails for $15, and it's already sold out of the Ulta website. And I'm just going to do some real quick swatches for you guys to see. I personally did not care for this. I know a lot of people said it's like similar to the Jeffree Star Blue Blood palette, but just like that palette and a little bit worse actually, I found the shades to be very chunky and chalky, and you know, it has a few browns in there, which is nice, but overall I really thought that this was very disappointing, and the mattes are not as bright as they look in the pan, and they're very patchy. So it doesn't matter whether you use your finger or your brush or wet brush, it's the same. Another thing I picked up was from Urban Decay's Wired new neon collection. I picked up eyeliners, and I wanted to actually quickly compare them with the eyeliners I previously bought a couple years ago from their Basquiat collection. Actually, when you run them side by side, it's pretty much very similar. Maybe the new one's a little bit more creamier because it's more of a fresh product, but I find them to be basically duplicates of what they previously released with a Basquiat collection, and they're pretty much identical products, which leads me to believe that every time Urban Decay releases a new collection, are they just going to be duplicates of the old stuff and repackaged? So maybe, you know, a couple of years we'll see the Game of Thrones eyeliners that were so coveted to be actually re-released in a different packaging, and that's what companies have been doing to us for some years now. You know, it's kind of a waste to buy this Wired collection, in my opinion, especially these double-tipped eyeliners that on one hand you have something to smudge it with, I guess, to change the color a little bit, and then on the other hand you have the other side of the tip, which is supposed to be like a glittery side. And to be honest, I found them to be completely worthless and a waste of money, and I don't recommend these double-sided eyeliners by any way. And even the eyeshadow palette was terrible, so I'm just going to leave it at that, and I'm going to tell you it's not worth it. Moving on to other products that I bought in the past few months, I went and got the Millie Bobby Brown magnetic palettes, or should I call it Florence by the Mail 16 Wishes eyeshadow palette. This palette retails for $34, and it's available at Ulta, and you get 16 shades as it suggests. You get your neutrals, your pinks and purples, and other colors. I thought they were not really pigmented and not like super pigmented, and they're pretty okay. There's some beautiful spring shades in there, but not enough to convince me to keep it. I liked the final quad, which had like some pinks and purples in it. That's probably my favorite quad of all, but overall I thought that it's not really worth having, maybe for someone who it's their first time using makeup, but for me, it was just like those two quads were a pass. The bottom line is, if you want something that looks cute and is magnetic, this might be for you, but if the color payoff is just not there, so that's my opinion. So moving on to other products, I wanted to talk about these two Face cheek palette highlighters or whatever. I just didn't like them, and the other one I really was on the fence about was these Too Faced neutral palettes that, you know, even though I have a lot of new Too Faced palettes and neutral palettes. I don't know. I still I bought it and I swatched it. But if you already own a lot of neutrals in your collection, I just don't know if it's worth spending another $45 to pick up this palette. And a lot of people have complained about it being too orangey toned and not super blendable on the eye. And I personally think it's a hit or miss palette. Like, you either love it or hate it, and for me, I didn't love it, so I'm just not really sure about it still. I might just give it away. Now the next one is the Smitten in Switzerland palette. So this palette really caught my eye because it's only $15 and it's by BH Cosmetics, and you get this nice range of shades, and it's supposed to remind you of Switzerland, how beautiful the colors are there, with like you have these bright greens and blues and, you know, rustic orangey shades there. However, in this case, you know, when you look at this palette, I'm not entirely sure if the colors are as bright and popping as a Switzerland landscape. As someone who's already been to Switzerland several times, I can tell you that I actually expected more of this palette. I think the concept is great. The shades are actually a good choice, but they don't really translate to the same shades when you swatch them on your skin, and they come out a little bit more patchier than I would have liked. For example, like this dark green, I just really didn't think that was worth it at all. And you know, some of the pink colors, you really have to build it up for it to work, and you don't get a whole lot of color payoff, but you are at the end of the day only spending $15. And I just felt like it was a disappointment. If they'd given this concept to another brand to execute it, I think the other brand would have probably done a better job. Now you do get a few nice shades, like a nice blue in there, and the light green isn't terrible, but really, you know, on the eye, I feel like you're not gonna, you know, get that amazing effect. And it's not super blendable either, at least in my experience. And I'm just, you know, I just didn't really get as much out of this palette that I was hoping to. And I tried working with it like several days later to see, you know, maybe I'm wrong, but really, you know, you see that they've tried, but they haven't tried enough. And that kind of is disappointing because, you know, I was really excited for this new concept of having a palette, you know, after like a whole country and the landscape. I felt like if you'd given this like to for example, Melt Cosmetics, who they came out with their more palettes like last year, their colors are so bright and really bold colors would have probably suit this a lot more than what we're seeing here. And I think Melt would have, for example, done a better job. So overall, I had to give that all of these palettes and all these other products pretty much a pass because I feel like it weren't worth it. Anyway, moving on to the Norvina APH collection volume 4. Now they've said in their promo videos that it's supposed to be like the 14 shade palettes that were sold for $42, also under the name of Norvina. And overall, you see that most of the colors are pink. That's why the outside packaging is pink, and you get the same type of pro pigment consistency, and the colors are mostly pink. You get only one purple that's sort of dual tone, and the yellow in there is actually not really neon. It's just like the yellow that you've seen in their mini pans. And you know, if you don't own a lot of pinks and you're really looking for it, go for it. But if you find yourself gravitating more towards other colors like purples, blues, and greens, then definitely look at the previous releases that she did. Where, for example, the orange one, the volume 3 had like really nice pops of color with like green and orange. That was my favorite one and continues to be my favorite one. Second, probably either the 2 or the 1. The 2 had mostly blues, then the 1 had mostly purples, and that's why she chose those color packaging for them, because it shows what color is dominating. Again, my favorite was probably the volume 3, and I don't know for sure that the volume 4 is really worth it if you only wanted it for the pinks. Anyway, as always, thank you so much for watching. I will be back with giveaways coming soon, and if you haven't subscribed already, make sure you're subscribed. So I will see you guys next time. Thank you.